Hello, and welcome to Talks on Docs, a documentary review podcast where the co-hosts and guests discuss, review, and give recommendations on any and all types of documentaries. Episode 42. For this episode, Jose Carioca selected Prime, Kids Icarus. Panchito Pistolas selected Prime, Star Wars, Reagan's Gigantic Bluff, and Donald Duck selected Tubi, Pathological, Optimism, and Vinmeo, Titicut, Follies.
Nothing like a little cultural appropriation, right?
Panchito Pistolas!
So that brings up a story. Grandma on Sarah's side, like 2 years ago, out of the blue, she started singing "I Am Ni Frito Bandito."
Okay.
So if you need any cultural immersion, Google Frito Bandito. It is a Frito-Lay commercial.
Oh, wow.
I am Ni Frito Bandito. I said, I think that's racist. She's like, it can't be. It was on TV.
It can't
nothing
be.
ever racist on TV.
Yeah, nothing racist on TV ever. So my kids sing I am the Frito Bandito occasionally.
Jeez. Well, they were talking on Pop Culture Leftovers this week of how Hamburger Helper was racist during the 80s and 90s when they had to have the Hamburger Helper, the little hand guy would get into costume or whatever. You'd have the
Oh yeah, they came out with the fajita mix.
Yeah, the fajita mix, and he had a sombrero on or something. They had an Asian beef one, so he looked Chinese or something. I don't know.
I loved Hamburger Helper.
Yeah.
Staple.
No.
Speaking of racism, nice voiceover on my one black friend and my one white friend.
Oh, you listened to that?
I listened to the first 2 episodes. It was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, they liked it.
Talk about just straight overt racism. Both of them. It's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they are as New York as you can get, though, man. They're in the Bronx, or one of them grew up in the Bronx, I think, or maybe they both did. But they're as New York as you can get. Man. They're fun guys, though. So has everybody got a good bowl of Halloween candy sitting right next to them for the podcast?
I might have some next to my blackberry cider.
I knew you would.
Oh, blackberry cider tonight, huh?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Last bottle from the old whatchamacallit, Apple Hill Delfino Farms.
Ah, nice. What's your favorite Halloween candy?
Reese's.
Reese's. All right.
Did you try the?
Okay.
Did you try the new Reese's with the Reese's Pieces in it?
I had those when they very first came out, in the store.
I had one.
Had it.
I snagged one.
Yeah, my daughter's kind of scoped it out and wouldn't let me have it. So.
Have you guys had the Oreo cream-filled chocolate bar?
Yeah, I didn't love it.
No,
I didn't love it.
I'm a big the best part of the Oreo is the lard. You know.
Yeah.
They make one called a Mega Stuff. I don't know if you guys knew.
I have had it.
Yes. I might have had it myself. I might have made a double mega.
Yeah, I may have done the same.
Jeez,
oh yeah, it's like an instant sugar rush.
Oh yeah.
Well, they need to put the trans fat back into it because they taste different than when we were kids because they had trans fat in them, and then they took them out because freaking everybody felt like everybody's gonna die from trans fats, and so they do taste a little bit different than when we were kids. To me, I notice. I don't know. I'm a trans fat connoisseur.
I'm a Reese's connoisseur. I've been known to eat them by the bag.
Oh
yeah. I'm the same way. That is definitely my weakness.
What's your guys' favorite
Buttercups.
Halloween candy?
Reese's Buttercups. Reese's, yeah, frozen. I like to throw them in the fridge. All right, so have I told you guys about my little weird issue with chocolates and then the Skittles and stuff
Yes.
being mixed together?
Well, the fruity candy and
Yeah,
the chocolate
okay.
candy.
Yeah, being mixed together in the same bag.
So I have a story about that too, related to this Halloween specifically. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just I have a weird obsession or quirkiness about I can't stand the like Reese's, especially Reese's.
So it's Reese's.
And the Hershey's just chocolate. Okay, Reese's, whatever.
Reese's is a monkey.
That's a good debate right there. That's okay. So it will absorb the flavors and scents of, especially of Skittles. Like if they're in the same bag or touching, the Buttercups will pick up the flavors and scents of a Skittles, and it drives me absolutely insane. And I told somebody at work that because we went to a laboratory, and they had a bowl, and it was mixed up. And he's like, "Do you want it?" It's like, "I'd love to have some, but I ain't going to touch it." And he's like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because I can tell you right now that Reese's Buttercup is going to taste like a freaking Skittle." He's like, "You're freaking crazy, dude." I was like, "Dude,
It's been defiled.
And yeah, exactly. And so he tried it, and he's like, "Dude, I thought you were crazy, but you're straight up right, man. Freaking, it takes on that flavor somehow."
So we towards the very end, we did all of our trick or treating. We came home. The boys handed out a few trick or treaters candy, and in between trick or treaters, Cameron, my almost 7-year-old, is sitting there, and he's looking at the bowl, just googly eyed, and I'm like, bud, when we go through your candy tonight, we got to make sure we separate the fruity candy from the chocolate candy. And he's like, why? And I was like, 'cause, bud, if you don't separate the fruity from the chocolate starts tasting fruity, and it doesn't taste good. And he kind of looks at me like this wise old man look. And a few minutes later, the doorbell rings. Cameron just goes running down, all excited, and we're like, give him handfuls, getting rid of it. And Cameron's dumping them in the bag, and then he stops. And they're older kids, because it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock,
Right.
and he's like, did you know that you need to separate your fruity candy from your chocolatey candy, or else they will taste the same?
That's awesome.
And the kids just looking at him, and Sarah and I are upstairs just cracking up, watching him from the door. So then we proceed to get out the Ziplocs, and we just every night when they pick out their candy for dessert, they have a piece. We're like, fruity or chocolate tonight? Tonight was chocolate.
Nice.
We will not defile the chocolate in our house.
I do have to give thanks to Sean. He managed to go trick-or-treating with my family when I wasn't able to. I ended up getting like some weird stomach bug. It was like intestinal. It was just like weird cramping. I don't know. It lasted for a couple of days, just like intense like intestinal cramping. And it was just put me on the bed. And it like started that day, or Thursday. I'm sorry, it started Thursday. I got up and worked out, and I thought it was from like working out or something. And then it just like it kept on getting worse and worse and worse all through the weekend, and then it finally kind of like died out on Sunday.
Some Asgardian bacteria.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys saw my costume. I guess you guys all
Pretty well
liked
done.
it. So I did end up. Thanks, I appreciate that. Went as Fat Thor. My wig came in that day of the party. And it was funny because when I get into costume, I really like tried to stay in character the whole time. I don't like just like, so I'm like yelling at everybody like I'm Thor and stuff. It's like Craig's house, and I'm like, "Welcome to Asgard!" And just like running up and grabbing people and shaking them and hugging them like crazy. Like Thor does to like to Rocket.
Yeah, all
Raccoon,
happy and drunk.
happy and drunk and just shaking them all up. So I was doing that to everybody, and I was walking. I wasn't drunk. I had one beer the whole time, but I was acting like I was drunk, and it was so funny because when I left, they thought I was like plastered when I was walking in my car
driving.
And yeah, and they were like, "Man, I really hope he's like not that plastered," because I was just like stumbling out to my car, and Craig's like, "Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you should stay the night." I was just like, "Oh, I'm fine." And so, did you guys get to do any parties or anything? Did you have yours, Sean?
Yeah, I I kind of bailed on the costume at the last minute, so I just I stole some of my daughter's headband that had cat ears on it, and I went as a cat person.
Cat
I went all out.
Yep. Right.
There was some good costumes at work though. One girl showed up with as a pig in a blanket. She just had a pig nose and then wore a blanket. it's like the perfect lazy costume.
Nice.
Right, totally. I felt sorry for one dude at the party because he came as Fat Thor as well too, but he wasn't fat. He was like a total beanpole. So he like shoved a pillow up underneath his shirt, and he had his own beard, so his beard didn't match, and he just had he ended up buying a wig, but the wig was for Cinderella, so it was just totally platinum blonde.
Just here's how you get fat, buddy.
Yeah.
Right. I was I've been working on mine for years.
Half-ass.
Yeah. Yeah, he actually ended up bailing early, and I don't know if it was just because I outdid him or what. But apparently I was R2's talking to me. Apparently I was the best costume of the night, according to everybody.
Well, it's dedication. You might not be going home with the happiest wife.
Right.
Depending on her love of Thor in all of his forms.
Well, people were asking where Jen was at, and I was like any good Asgardian woman, she's at home,
barefoot.
Right. And they're like, oh, okay, you freaking sexist bastard, you. I also have to give thanks to Sean again for letting us borrow his wife on a traumatic incident the other night. So, jeez, this was freaking crazy. So, I had to be sworn in on, what day was that, Sean? Was it Monday or Tuesday?
Monday.
It was
Monday.
early in the week. Yeah, Monday night or something. Yeah. So, I could not find time to get a haircut. So Monday night, I shaved my head and, cleaned up my beard and stuff, and because I had to be sworn in the next day for my job.
You're sworn in?
And yeah, I'm sworn. I'm a sworn officer, dude, just like you, man. I'm pimping.
You ain't legit.
I've never been there before. It's the fourth time I've sworn in.
Yeah, you just swear a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to clean up for the judge and everything. So I'm shaved my head and everything, and Jen takes care of the neck, and she was having issues with taking in the neck. Shaving the neck. She's like, hey, just jump in the shower real quick and rinse it all off. And I was like, all right. So, no more than 2 minutes into the shower, I hear this loud banging at the door to the bathroom, and I could hear Asa yelling, Mommy's hurt, Mommy needs you. And it's it's not even 2 minutes. I barely even stepped into the shower. So I turned the water off, and I stepped out of the shower, and I was like, Asa, what are you doing? And he's like, Mommy's really hurt. She needs you. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so I opened the door, and it's out to the second part of our bathroom where the sinks are. And my side of the sink, the stopper is kind of jacked up right now. Mm-hmm. So the water's completely turned on, and it's got that bright red blood look in it. And it's about to overflow with that. And Jen's crying bloody murder with this towel wrapped around her hand, and you could see the towel's already bleeding through. And I was like, what in the world did you do? And she's just crying. She won't tell me. She says, the blade. And she's just bloody murder crying and trying to hold pressure to it. And I was like, what are you, I'm trying to get her to calm down. I'm trying to get her to sit down, and she won't sit down.
Naked.
And totally butt naked, dude. Totally butt naked. Freaking towel fell off. I have kids running into the room. Mommy's bleeding. Daddy's naked. What in the world's going on?
Dogs and cats are sleeping together.
And right, Mommy's crying hysterically. She won't say
When did you go to
anything.
jail again?
Yeah, exactly. And so finally get her calmed down a little, and she still will not let me look at what happened. And she finally calms down to the point where she tells me that she went downstairs to work on some of her sewing, and she has one of those rotary blades that kind of looks like a pizza cutter.
Yeah, those are tiny, right?
Well, no, this one's good size. I mean, when she buys stuff for her sewing machine or her sewing room, it's like professional grade stuff, and it's a good size one. It's probably about 2 inches in diameter, and so what she was doing is she was quickly trying to cut up some fabric while I was taking a shower. And in the midst of it, and the blade on that thing is like an X-Acto knife. I mean, those things are freaking crazy.
And you're putting
sharp.
a lot of put a lot of pressure on it for it to cut. So it's they use them for cutting, leather, like 1/4-inch thick leather. Yeah, it's heavy duty stuff.
Yeah. So somehow she takes this thing and goes right over the tip of her thumb and like literally slices the fingernail and a couple of centimeters of skin just straight off, right like if you're looking at your thumb, it'd be just left of the tip of the thumb, just completely gone. And and then in the midst of this, Jen's freaking out because Kaylin has to be picked up from a trombone lesson that is getting out at like in a few minutes. So I was like, do you want me to call an ambulance? We have to pick up Kaylin, but you're like bleeding, and freaking out still. And she's like, call staff. And I was like, all right. And like the moment I call staff, she's literally like walking through the door. And she's like, can I call you back in a minute? I was like, yeah, sure. Freaking all hell's breaking loose. My wife's bleeding to death. But yeah, call me back in a couple of minutes.
That was funny. So the girls had tutoring Monday afternoon. So they come. They're usually done about 5:30. They come in the house at like 6, and Steph's like, I gotta go. All I got was Sturdy called me on Jen's phone, and I think her hand's cut off or something. so she walks out the door and drives over there, and like the girls are like, "What's wrong with Jen?" So I don't know. I think she's decapitated. I'm not sure.
It's getting worse and worse. So she could barely talk.
Right. So Steph shows up, and she's a huge help. She's calming Jen down and trying to get her to like uncover this injury. And the thing is, it's not like a horrific injury. It's just where it was at, because she cut off. It literally like went straight through the fingernail, like it was not even there. Tip. Yeah, and then cut off that very sensitive ending of her thumb, so it's like really super sensitive, and it bleeds like crazy. Yeah, and so it's just tons of blood and just pain like no other. And so I went downstairs and I took apart. I'm like. She's like, there's got to be a piece of my thumb in the downstairs. So I'm like downstairs, like taking apart this rotary blade, and there was a good chunk of skin and fingernail in between the guard and the blade. And,
how did she get up? Was there a trail of blood, or did she just wad up some cloth right there?
No. She immediately there was cloth there, of course. Yeah. And she just grabbed that and in her head, she thought it was like a freaking bloodbath down there. I was like, no, there's like no blood at all.
I've done similar things back when the kids were really young and Sarah's at work and I'm cooking dinner. And my only thought is, I got to feed these kids and I better not get blood anywhere or else Sarah's going to kill me. But yeah, it's like a common thing. Yeah. Like I tell Sarah, well, I cut my finger tonight. She's like, which vegetable were you dicing or what were you cutting? Because I always say we got to keep the knives really sharp. So yeah, I feel her pain. That thing just aches too. That's gonna just like throbs for a couple of days at least.
It takes forever to heal because you hit it on everything, you know, because it's your thumb.
Yes.
Yeah, that's funny. Steph, when she was when she worked at Compo, she had a guy that on his first day cut off his, I think it was his thumb. Was it his? Yeah, it was.
Like cut a chunk of it or most of it?
Like the first knuckle.
Ooh. That's
his very first day, right? And so the chef looks at him and goes, "Well, you can go to the hospital, or we can take care of it right now and finish the shift." And the guy's like, "Let's take care of it." So they fire up the flat top cast iron grill and
no
stick his
way.
thumb to it.
What?
Yeah,
No way.
just seared it
it?
closed.
No way,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Freaking
And he
Ram.
finished the shift.
Did he scream like a stuck pig? Holy
I don't
cow.
Did he scream?
Rambo style.
He better have gotten like
Did it.
a bonus for that. Like, damn.
Yes.
Well, he got a nickname
Man,
out of
that's horrific, man.
it.
Yeah.
They called him Nubs from then on out.
Wow. I'd
Yeah.
call it balls, man. That's balls that like get seared shut.
Yeah, what do you think?
Can I drink?
Like?
Can I do some shots while I'm at work now?
Yeah, that's
Right.
crazy, right?
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So
I
when
see
Steph
that.
walked in and saw Jen's thumb tip off, she's like, "What are you whining about?"
Yeah. No, I know.
I can hear my wife. We need to go to the ER. No, we don't need to go to the ER. I wash my knives regularly. We just need a lot of soaking gauze and, some Bactine.
No.
Oh,
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Talks on Docs. We're your co-hosts. I am
I'm
Donald.
Panchito Pistoles.
And I'm Jose Carioca.
All right, you guys ready to get into the meat of this and get into... Well, actually, I do have an Apple podcast, ratings and review, emails and corrections. Go ahead
CC.
and go over
I
that.
hope it's another correction.
Actually, we didn't get any corrections.
Nothing
about
about the space-time
'Cause we're just
continuum
that-
or time travel.
No. So, because we're that brilliant now. We make no mistakes.
Subject matter expert.
Time to give a little thanks and appreciation for the emails and Apple Podcast reviews. This one is from Chris Eaton, 1973. I'm going to guess he was born in 1973.
He's old.
Actually, no. This is Chris from My One White Friend, My One Black Friend podcast. They've only had about like 4 episodes out now, but they're a great podcast. So make sure and check them out. I've done some voice acting for them. See if you can figure it out. Chris is pretty good about making sure he recognizes me as the voice. But Chris went on to say in his podcast review, it's titled Talking the Talk and Walking the Walk, a 5-star review. I haven't heard many doc podcasts in the past, but I will tell you this podcast knew there was a niche and filled it big time. Sturdy and the boys crush it. Well, I'm sorry, Donald and the boys crushed it every week. And if you have a chance, check out the episodes with Empire of Dreams, Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers, and the 24-Hour War. Finally, a place where I can get my actual nerd on and talk about docs on docs. Chris Eaton, 1973. So thanks, Chris. I greatly appreciate that. I'm having a great time helping you guys out on your podcast as well, too. And goofing around with you guys with videos and such. I'm going to be on their podcast here shortly. They're doing a full 9 episode breakdown of each Star Wars movie that's been
Nice.
out.
Yeah. I discovered them this week, and yeah, they're pretty awesome. It's definitely
they're a lot of
not
fun.
a kids show, but it's. I think
We be in.
they drop a few more F-bombs than I did in the Army. So
Right. Yes, they do. They are New Yorkers to the core. They are born and raised in New York, and specifically the Bronx, I believe. So yeah, I mean they're as New York as you can get. But they are a lot of fun to talk to and to listen to as well too. We also received 2 new download countries. We got a download in Egypt,
Wow.
which was
Cool.
interesting.
Hopefully they're walking like it.
And walk like an Egyptian. Dun, 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 dun. And Slovenia.
wow.
Whoa. Maybe a
No,
little Halloween
no.
episode? No?
Maybe Slovenia. No songs. for Slovenia?
You know, red wine, maybe.
I don't know that I know any Slovenic songs.
No, that's Jewish.
Well, thank you, Slovenia. Muchas gracias.
Yes. All right, that'll go ahead and do it for our Apple Podcast ratings and reviews, emails, and corrections. We're going to go ahead and go on to our selections for next week.
During the next section, the co-hosts keep it fresh and spoiler-free as they announce their selections for next week's podcast.
All right, we're going to go ahead and break into our selections for next week. We'll go ahead and have Jose Carioca go for it.
So my pick is Crafting a Nation on Amazon Prime. And it's the American craft beer industry began its rise during the worst economic crisis in America since the Great Depression. In 2012, as the craft beer movement was sweeping the country, a team of visionary young filmmakers with a passion for both documentary film and craft beer tell the story of how the American dream is alive and well. The documentary film Crafting a Nation is the result. It has 6.4 on IMDb, 4.4 stars on Prime, and it has a 71% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. No tomato meter. So
cool. Yeah, I have not even heard of that one. That should be interesting.
So
I remember.
Sorry, I actually was going to pick I found a bourbon one that was like the history of bourbon and Kentucky, but it was a little kind of like something you'd watch in school. It was like a PBS thing. I was
Yeah. I think I know the one that you're talking about. I think I started that one at one point. I was just,
it was pretty good. It's very much like something you'd watch in school.
Todd had mentioned one time long ago on a previous episode. He like had the breakdown of which nations drank the most beer.
Yeah.
So, and I think America came in like third or something. There was some like Eastern European country that drank more beer than anybody else.
Germany up there? They seem to be.
No, Germany was actually like below us or something. If I remember right, I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen, or just contact Todd. Which shift is he on now?
Oh, he's on Graveyard.
I'm sorry, Panchito Pistolas.
He's on Graveyard. He may be changing. We'll see come January.
If he changes, that'd be awesome.
He's always been a man of the night. So.
Oh yes, he has for freaking what? Over 20 years now, right?
Pretty much most of his career.
That's crazy. It's been Graveyard. That's
I'm gonna have to have a beer with us next week then, for sure.
So good selection there, Jose Carioca. And we'll go ahead and pass it on to you, Panchito Pistolas. What you got for us?
I have a free solo on Hulu. It is made in 2018. It is the free solo climber Alex Honnold prepares to achieve his lifelong dream, scaling the 3,200-foot El Capitan in Yosemite National Park without a rope. It's on Hulu, like I said. I didn't find it on Prime, but I could be wrong. But it's got a 97% on the tomato meter.
Wow.
And IMDb had it pretty high as well at 8.2. It's got some National Geographic background, I want to say, in watching the trailer for it. And I think there's two stories that I saw. The fact that this guy wants to scale El Capitan without a rope. But then also some crazy suicidal guys actually videotape it. So they have ropes, and in a couple of the still shots I've seen, it shows like a dude hanging off the side of El Capitan with ropes and like a camera on his shoulder, and I'm just like, dude, who's really the bravest one here?
Right. I know, right?
Yeah, it seems the trailer seems cool. It definitely seems, like there's gonna be some great just geographic shots, and the country seems quite beautiful. So I stumbled across it somewhere, and I think it'll be pretty cool.
I've heard a lot about this one, actually, because somebody I've podcasted with before. I've never watched it, but he talks about it quite often. His Joe Stark, he actually has his own podcast. It's called the Starkcast. So he might actually be able to join us just for that review, because he is a huge climber. fanatic.
Well, yeah, one of his quote in here, like, all the friends of mine that have free soloed before aren't around anymore. Like, they've all died. And even the cameraman's
right.
like, I was kind of at a quandary at this because I'm doing a video, and I know at any point my friend might just fall out of frame. Like, that's literally what he says. Like, wow. That's gonna cut short the doc.
Exactly, right? All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and go on to mine, Donald Duck. And I selected Netflix, Fire in Paradise. And this is more of like a short, so I might actually add something because it's only 40 minutes long. But since it's kind of so fresh and so close to where we live and we see everything that's going on in California right now with more fires, I felt like it would be kind of a cool thing to watch. So the synopsis is it's on Netflix, and it's called The Fire in Paradise. On 9/8/18, a fire broke out in California near the town of Paradise. Over the course of a few hours, the camp fire grew into... It wasn't a campfire, though.
I think they named it that.
This is wrong.
Because of where it started.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, it was freaking PG&E, mother...
It's not a campfire, it's a location.
Yeah, all right. So, you people know. It was campfire grew. The campfire grew into a country's deadliest wildfire in over a century. Through first-hand footage of the disaster and interviews with survivors and responders, Fire in Paradise retells the survival stories from that day. It's got a 5.3 IMDb, but only has 6 reviews on it. A Rotten Tomato doesn't have a score yet because it's pretty fresh still. And runtime, like I said earlier, 40 minutes. And like, for us, the three of us, this kind of hits home pretty close. And actually, my buddy Craig, he's got a cabin that sits right on top of Bucks Lake, which is like just, if the wind had changed, that Bucks Lake would have definitely been endangered. But I'm sure everybody who's listening has seen some type of footage of this, especially on Facebook or any social medias, of like the people literally like driving through tunnels of flames to save their lives, literally. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I'll have to talk to Craig again about like what's going on with PG&E because he keeps a tab on that, because Bucks Lake is a power source for PG&E, and so they're constantly being fed information of like what's going on with the lawsuits and stuff, and like, is PG&E going to get out of this, or are they literally going to go bankrupt, or what is California going to do about all this and the power grid and all the issues they're having. And then now this year they're having the same freaking issues.
Well, have you heard what they're doing to quote unquote avoid a fire?
Yeah,
they're
just
having
shutting down power.
Scheduled blackouts.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, days. Just to avoid fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
like
insane,
that. Like,
man.
no, are you kidding me? What is this? A communist country? No, you can't just shut off the power and terminate people's houses and businesses and no, you failed. Business over.
Yeah, you didn't bother to maintain your infrastructure for 50 years, and now everybody else has to pay for it.
Yeah, and that's what I want to see, if this document brings up those points of like, they never did landscaping or cleaning out areas or any of that.
Well, it was like a mixture of California politics where they, love the world, don't cut a tree down. But then, I mean, I'm sorry, Lake Tahoe is in our backyard as well, right here, and you gotta trim the trees. Like, we're in with nature, and trees are dead; they need to be cut down. Beetles are infesting; you cut them out like a tumor, and you burn the wood for whatever use you can. Like, help nature, and it'll be stronger because of it. I'm not, I get fired up about this. This is
this is totally avoidable. Man. All of this was totally avoidable.
Yeah. I mean, I have family pictures from my dad's side of the family who's been in this area for generations now of Tahoe being completely treeless on the California
side. It was when they founded it.
I mean, you can look you can look to the northern side of Tahoe and it's completely just stripped of any trees. It's just completely bald.
Because Nevada was owned by like one or two dudes, and they held on to it until they finally gradually sold off chunks.
Yeah, and it's like all that stuff's back. This lake is still freaking crystal clear, So
yeah, I think there's actually more trees in Tahoe now than there was before the gold rush.
Oh yeah, after the gold
Yeah,
rush, they were
jeez.
stripping it.
Because they just stripped it. So there's actually more now than there ever has been because they're so protected.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they're stripping Tahoe and sending all that across freaking Washoe Valley to Virginia City.
Yeah.
So for the mining and everything. So yeah, it's crazy, man. So we'll see how much they bring into that. And it's a quick one. I might add something if it's like too quick. I might add another, like maybe a short for our thing.
I think we're pretty good. Mine's pretty long, so it'll balance out.
That'll do it for our selections for next week. We're going to go ahead and go into our short doc of the week.
Keeping it short and snappy, a quick look and conversation on a few short subject docs.
For our short doc of the week, I selected Autism Rocks, the Autistics, with an X at the end instead of AC. And you can find this on Vimeo. Just type in Autism Rocks, the Autistics. And the description, Jack, Luke, and Saul are the Autistics, the UK's premier autistic rock group. The boys are a tight-knit friendship group, expressing themselves through rock and roll in a way that they struggle to off stage. Can they impress the crowds as they go on tour for the first time and build up their biggest gig so far, Autism's Got Talent? And I really love this one. One of the guys I work closely with, Jake, his son, I wish I could remember how old he was, but his son Zyler, which is interesting that he's got a son named Zyler as well too, has autism as well too, but he's a non-speaking autistic child. He does speak, but it's really, really hard to get words out of him, and he's very. I wish I knew more about like how the spectrum of autism works, but I guess he would be on the extreme side of autism, and he, like, I want to say he's like more towards like 10 or so, but he's not speaking very much, and so he wouldn't be in this group. But do you guys know, or do you guys have a direct relationship with somebody who has autism? How about you, Jose?
A good buddy of mine from the Army has autistic twins.
Oh, wow. I've never even heard of that.
It's been they found a really good therapist, and they've got them speaking but for a long time, especially since they're twins, because twins can communicate without speaking anyway, and that tends to be a problem for twins when they're younger. Being that they were autistic or are autistic, it's taken a long time for them to get them to be at a speaking level and be able to communicate. But they're amazingly and amazingly focused. So it is definitely a disability, but it can also be kind of an advantage too because of their ability to focus on things. But I think they just turned 7, if I'm not mistaken. But they're doing really well now, and they found you find the right therapist, and they're always going to be different, but they can be better than us,
Right. So have they found any kind of like niche or something that they are kind of like savant in or anything?
I don't
twins?
think so yet. They're only 7, so
okay. Right.
And I'm in touch with him pretty good, but I'm not as much as I should be. You know how it is with all my friends. It's never as much as I'd like to see him, but yeah, we're actually going to see him this December. We're heading down to Florida. We'll see him. So
awesome. Pistola. Do you know anybody who has?
No, I really, I haven't interacted with a whole lot of people personally in my personal life, or kids or friends of kids even. So it's, I really don't have any firsthand experience dealing with them outside of folks that I deal with at work. But this little short was, I was smiling the whole time. It was really uplifting in the sense that it starts out, I'm like bummed that these kids are going through this, these young adults, I guess. But I couldn't think of anything but the Ramones when I'm thinking of the main, was he bass player, guitar player? He totally took me to that. Yeah. And the drummer, like, I don't think he's very articulate, and he has this gift of rhythm, and it helps him, and that's awesome. And then I think the singer slash second guitarist, I think he's probably going to come out of his shell tenfold because of this. You know, he seems to be the most functional. Yeah. And then between the three of them, they kind of click together, which is nice. You know, I mean, very few of us have one or two close friends. So this was really uplifting in the sense that it's, you know, autism can be quite the downer, and there's no future type mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was interesting. And it's Saul's dad said, you know, it's like having I'm just going to have a son that needs my help for the rest of his life. You know, that's just all it is, you know.
It's like the guy I work with, Jake, he's got, his oldest son is autistic, and then his younger son, who is like, I think, my Zyler's age, so he's like around 3 or 4, I believe. They have a real hard time finding babysitters to work with that struggle of the difference of working with an autistic child in the way of babysitter. You know, I've offered to watch their kids and stuff, because him and his wife don't get out at all to, you know, on dates or anything, because it's so hard for them to find a babysitter who's willing to take on that challenge. And I find myself, even though I've worked as a police officer who specifically dealt with autism, because a lot of the autistic kids are wanderers, and they'll wander off, and then they'll be found in the middle of the street. They don't know how to speak, or they're not audible, so, you know, they're like in no clothes other than maybe a pair of underwear, you know, and the police are called, of course. And what are the police supposed to do? You know, they're dealing with a child that can't speak or anything. So as part of a program where the children, the autistic kids, could wear a radio band on their wrist, where we could track and figure out like who they were, where they lived, and such. And you know, so I have that experience of being close and personal and working with autistic kids and stuff. So I've offered to babysit, but at the same time, I've got 6 kids who they have never been around another child who has autism, you know, and how are they going to act? I know Kaylin, who's my highly intelligent child. She is definitely one that has always guarded the quote unquote underdog. So I know she would do very, very well. But Asa, you know, my oldest son, he's kind of like the one who wants to grab the attention and, you know, cause a scene and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know how he's going to act around an autistic kid. But I loved watching this. It's a great short documentary. And it's great to see how many differences there are with autism.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is basically shows the full spectrum, right? You've got the high functioning to the barely functioning, you know. And I think the great thing that this shows is that, you know, that one of the amazing thing about autistic kids is once you can find what their thing is, they really excel at it. You know, they're really able to, and they're able to function so much better once they find that thing.
HB, have you? Oh, I'm sorry, not HB. What is your
Pistoles.
name?
Panchito Pistoles.
Pistolas. Have you come across any of that at work?
Yeah. I've met a fair amount. There's one in particular I recall. It was kind of like what we said and what we've arranged. You know, it's the parents had, you know, they lived in a trailer. They weren't like, you know, destitute, but they were scraping by, and they had a little patio, and they'd have like a child lock on the outside of it. And their kid was like 13 or 14. He was a strong kid, and he'd get out, and if the wrong person with the wrong attitude tried to redirect him, it was going to go sideways, and it was not pretty. But you know, it's my dumb attitude towards dealing with folks with those issues is just, talk slow, use small words, and just be friendly. And they're generally not being harmful on purpose or doing something physical on purpose. It's just they're trying to express, or they're frustrated, or they're overloaded, and really calming the situation down and just showing some genuine caring is the first step to working through it. I just, these parents that are actually trying, just they need to go on a pedestal. It's crazy. I mean, I could not imagine. Middle of the night, you're getting a call, you're getting a wake up from your kid downstairs. It's 10, 12, 15 for who knows what reason. They're going to the bathroom and they fell or cut themselves or did something that a normal kid would function through. And it's so these parents definitely are a step above for letting their kids do this, because it's definitely beyond like the comfortable stay at home, live the routine, do the daily, go on tour with your kid in a rock band. No, not quite. So
yeah, it reminds me of one of the things I'd love to do with trainees when I was a police officer is being a part of this program where working with the children with autism was taking the trainees to the houses. A lot of the houses were in like kind of the middle income neighborhoods and such, and they were very much into the program. So I would take the trainees to these houses that I knew where the kids were very, there was one specific house where the kids, they were brothers and they both had autism, and it was the grandparents who had adopted them. So it was a very unique situation where you had two brothers, different ages, that were adopted by the grandparents, and they were very touchy-feely children. And I think they're in their like preteens when I was working with them, but I'd bring the trainees there to kind of become accustomed, because they were very just like come up and grab you and hold you, and they wanted to touch the taser, and they asked about the radio and the gun, and they always had to touch them, and that's stressful. As a police officer, that's like everything you don't want to happen. You don't want this middle-aged child who's the same size as you, that you have absolutely no idea what they're going to do, touching your taser, touching your gun, grabbing for your magazines and stuff. Oh yeah. And it's like, hey, this is I would bring these trainees into these houses and not tell them at all about what was going to happen, because I wanted to see how they were going to
stress inoculation.
Yeah. It's like, this is what you're going to experience at some point in your career, And, this is the world that we live in today. It's like you have to be able to control yourselves around, situations that you're not going to expect. And so it was always very entertaining to see that. But the family, the grandparents loved it, because they knew I was able to bring in new officers and introduce their kids to these officers, because their kids were very low speaking. Like they could not give you what their name was, where they lived, or anything. These were the kids that would be found like in the middle of the street wearing nothing but like tidy whities, and weren't able to give you a name or what their address was or anything. So
yeah,
it was a good experience for them, So
well, that's cool from that family too, that they're willing to do that.
Oh, totally.
Because I imagine that's a something you're not ready for until you see it, kind of thing. And
right.
That's awesome for those parents to open up their home and let you guys, interact with their kids.
All right. Anything else on this one?
Nope.
All right. We're going to go ahead and go into our breakdown for this week.
Prepare to be spoiled. In the breakdown section, our co-hosts go deeper into the conversation and truly express their thoughts on the documentaries.
All right, for our breakdown, we're going to start off with Titicut Follies, which actually was a selection that we made a couple of weeks ago, but some issues came up. So we're going to go over this one real quick, just because we really wanted to talk about this one. It's not so much on lists of most disturbing documentaries. This one comes up quite a bit. It actually comes up on a lot of lists. And the weird thing is it's such a hard documentary to actually find. And I was finally able to find it on Vimeo. If you type into Vimeo Titicut Follies full version, hopefully you should be able to come across it. I can't remember the runtime. Do any of you guys remember?
It's about an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a little longer.
About an hour. Yeah, there's a lot of reviews on Vimeo. So if it says like 13 minutes or 10 minutes, that's not it. You want to look for the longer version. It's got a description. Titicut Follies is a 1969 American direct cinema documentary filmed directly by Frederick Wiseman and filmed by John Marshall about the patient inmates of Bridgewater State Hospital for the criminally insane, a Massachusetts Correctional Institute in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. In 1967, the film won an award in Germany and Italy. Later on, Wiseman made a number of such films examining social institutes such as hospitals, police stations, schools, and such within the United States. And like I said earlier, this has always been listed as like one of the most disturbing and unusual and kind of, I don't know, mind-bending, I guess, documentary. And I think part of that is how it's filmed. It kind of puts you into like a first-person experience throughout the documentary. There's absolutely no narrative whatsoever on this documentary. And it starts off, the documentary starts off with a scene of the patients mixed in with, I believe, people who worked at the Institute doing a musical, which is the name of the documentary, Titicut Follies. This documentary sends you through all kinds of emotional roller coasters and such. It's in the way of rating this thing. I would recommend it if you're definitely interested in this thing. If you feel like you're not one to be interested in mental disability, especially in the criminal sense of mental insanity, if that's something that doesn't really float your boat or you're not interested in, I wouldn't watch this. If you watched the recent Joker movie, there's a lot of things you can kind of pull similarities through between the two characters of how mental disabilities has kind of and always has been left on the outskirts of social and governmental support. It doesn't get a lot of financial support through anybody. And they're kind of put on the wayside, and that's what this film really documents and shows you, is that mental disability has always gotten the short stick of government funding, I guess. So what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I would rate this as regret, but at the same time, this has the potential to be one of the best documentaries ever made on mental health. If somebody took this and actually narrated it and put it into a sequence that made sense, it would really be a really, really powerful documentary. But it's just raw footage. It's very difficult to watch, and it's hard to follow. And I mean, don't get me wrong. It's kind of eye-opening, but I regret watching this. I would not choose to watch this again. But I really do think if a really good producer, director sat down and put this into something more coherent, it would be a very good documentary.
I totally understand where you're coming from, because it is all over the place. You have no idea what you're doing with or what you're watching at times. It just cuts back and forth. There's a scene where there's a patient where they're force feeding him.
Yeah, because he refuses to eat.
And he refuses to eat, so they force feed him through a tube. and we'll go into that more later on, I guess, in our discussion. But you're like, there's absolutely no narrative. So then there's all of a sudden scenes of mortuaries that looks like it's inside of the Institute. So you don't know if the guy like died from like starving himself, or if it was from like the forced feeding or what. And it's just like, it's very poorly cut together. Or I don't know if they deliberately did that. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. It's just all over the place. It's very poorly put together, but at the same sense, it kind of creates that craziness in your head of like putting you of like, what the hell's going on? So you're kind of relating with the patients at that point as well too. I don't know. What's your take on it, HP?
Yeah, I mean, I regret it as well.
Okay.
With the mindset similar to Jose there, that it's there needs to be some narrative. Like I'd like to know the name of the guy that they're fucking with in the corner, trying to get him to act out and yell at them when he's doing fine for a bit, and who the tool bag guards are that are some of the dicks that you see over and over again, and who the creepazoid like I have this mindset that he's a colonel, but I have no idea what he is. The leader that's like the one that like appears to sing randomly in different places throughout this like institution, but then he's never actually doing the dirty work of taking care of his people or his patients. So I would like to know some of that, and some specifics on the fact that you read that and said that it was a criminally insane institution. That was eye-opening, because that makes me think of them slightly differently. Not any worse, but okay, I know why these guys are here. They have very little choice in being here because they've probably been court-ordered as a punishment / a coping. They're not free to go. None of these folks were probably dropped off by their mom and dad, and but it's so disjointed in the way they present it. And the way that they there's no flow to it. Like, give me a day, give me like a day in the life versus, random segments of time. And then so from purely a documentary point of view, yes, the editing sucks. I do like that they show guys that are completely nut bar and not very responsive, guys that are kind of in between with that old guy that they were fucking with, pissing him off, to a pretty functional dude that's like arguing for his freedom and saying that his treatment's not doing well and not helping him and really making him worse. And then the capper on top, the sound, it sucks. Like, I had to have this cranked up to 100 at times. Yeah. And all you're hearing is that like staticky, like popping sound, and then it blows your ears out, and then they need some polish on this, and I think today's world can handle it. It was disturbing, and in the 60s, I mean, this is the epitome of why guys just got lobotomized, because we didn't know any better and we were done dealing with you. You're crazy. Quit bothering me.
Right.
Which isn't okay, but this was just disturbing in so many levels. I mean, guys naked. Like, why were these guys naked like all the damn time?
Right.
Like, take away the drawstrings, take away the things they can hang themselves with or hurt themselves with, but give them some blanket clothes, dude. Like, that right there dehumanizes the hell out of you, walking around naked like a piece of cattle. So nearly all the time. Like that right there. I was like, what is the point of this?
Yeah. So anytime they were put in their room, they were completely stark naked, not a piece of clothing. And then they'd yell at them and scream at them for their rooms or their cells being dirty. It's like, what the hell are they making a mess out of? They have nothing in there.
Pissing probably and missing the target. I don't know.
I guess that's like the only thing I could think of is how they would make a mess.
How about the job of the guy that shaves these crazy people? Like, it's something you don't think of nowadays, because we got electric razors help. But there's a dude that is like the super, like, he can shave somebody in like 10 seconds flat, crazy or not,
without cutting them or anything.
Yeah,
with the straight moving, and that was insane. That was insane compared to the rest of the movie.
Yes. Yeah, that was a little anxiety going on there. This dude with a straight edge on these
And
guys.
then yelling at the one guy, "Stop drinking the water! Don't drink. I'll get you a drink of water. Don't drink the water out of the bathtub. Stop it."
It just sucks it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
and the guy with the feeding tube, like,
Oh,
so it
man.
happened a few times when they were dealing with
Oh,
people.
man.
The doctors are they're just tugging on a heater, just smoking away,
Oh,
and he's like
Yes.
dipping this guy's like feeding tube in some sort of like food lubricant, like oil, butter, I don't know. And just like there's not much in there. So then he just really digs into it with his finger like you do at the bottom of the cake batter, bowl when you're a kid. But he's doing it with this guy's feeding tube that he then crams down this
Right.
dude's throat like 2 feet.
yeah.
And then he starts just
Oh,
pouring
sick.
liquid whatever down there with this like inch long like ash hanging off his cigarette.
Yes. Was that not insane?
I'm like, and no gloves. Nobody wears gloves. I don't know if they
Oh,
had
no.
gloves like we do in the 60s back then. I'm just like, dear
Right.
God, this is sanitation gone wrong times 100.
The only one moment in this documentary that was kind of like uplifting was the birthday party, because it seemed like everybody just genuinely had a sense of
The women
happiness.
definitely wanted to make it happy. The second
Yeah.
pin the tail on the whatever that was.
Yeah, well, okay, that's a different scene than
Okay.
what I'm thinking of. There's another one where they have like
Uh-huh.
the cake, and they're singing "Happy Birthday" and stuff. And it, regardless of the situation that these, are we calling them prisoners or patients? That are there. They had a genuine happiness of celebration for the for the
Yeah.
birthday. It's just like, regardless of these horrific situations that you were in, it was good to see that no matter what, people can still find happiness and joy in their situation. That was the only point where I was like, I felt like normalcy, throughout this entire thing.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. I mean, I get the concept now they know that they're prisoners. They have to do a certain amount of penalty. But if there's any hope of them being in society, like they have mental illness, you're at best going to get them in a halfway group home. Yeah, they're not going to walk out and become factory workers. So, I mean, I think the human dignity factor, that's what pissed me off the most. The fact that you just, these people don't know what's going on. I didn't see anybody that was blatantly acting out until they were instigated. And that just, you're given a position of power and a position of authority and a position of trust, and you treat it like a bully and just poke and poke until you get a funny response. And I think it just made the guards, there was one in particular that just looked like an idiot, just following behind with like his stupid grin, and he'd ask the same question to that old guy, what's going on, or what's wrong with your room, or something he was saying, and I just wanted to punch him in the fucking face.
Yeah, it was like, what did you say, Jim,
yeah.
or something?
It's like, did that guy might have fought in World War I, for God's sakes, and just got fucked up. You don't know a shit at all about
exactly.
it.
Yeah, it's definitely eye-opening, but it definitely needs some renovation, or not renovations, but some updates to it for sure. Okay, you guys ready to go on to our next one?
Yep.
Let's go ahead and go on to yours. Panchito Pistolas.
Muchas gracias.
Star Wars.
I had Star Wars. Reagan's gigantic bluff. So this was on Prime. A summary of this is President Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, was a space-based missile defense system aimed at neutralizing the Soviet military threat. The Kremlin claimed that this would provoke certain nuclear war, but Reagan's military deception ultimately contributed to the unraveling of the Soviet Union. It's a 2017 doc. It's directed by Frederick Tonoli. So there's a lot. One thing I took from this is I think there's a lot of Russian influence in the making of this doc. There's a lot more Russian interaction in it than I would expect, as far as interviews and whatnot.
Right.
And I was actually pretty interested in it because I grew up, like we all did in this time frame, like Star Wars, like it was going to happen if it wasn't happening already. Like They're shooting lasers at missiles, and nobody can touch us here in the U.S. of A. So it was definitely interesting to know that there pretty much was never a chance that this was going to exist. Like, they basically knew that, this was a pipe dream. And I thought it was very well done in the fact that they talked to a myriad of folks, from like old political advisors of Reagan's to Russian equivalents to Khrushchev's son, who is a professor in the United States of America right now, which I totally
that blew my mind.
Yeah,
that totally blew my mind.
And he's pretty anti-American in a lot of ways, but he's an American professor. So
at a pretty big school. What school was he at? It was a pretty big school.
Was it Rhode Island or East Coast, Massachusetts?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I would give it a recommend. It's not, I wouldn't say required, but if you grew up in this time frame, it would be interesting to realize how much BS we all were fed. But it was interesting to see how manipulative, and I don't buy that it was all Reagan's idea. I've concretely bought into Reagan was a smart guy that realized he needed to surround himself with smarter advisors. And his advisors manipulated the living daylights out of the Russians to the point it created the terrorist problem we have today. I mean, they gave Osama's family all of his weapons that he needed to start out his life of what led to 9/11, I really believe. It just transformed the terrorists that were considered patriotic rebels back then into terrorist groups that hated the hand that fed them for the twisted reasons that we did. But yeah, all this, it was just a giant manipulation game and money, shell game of money and missiles and guns and bombs.
Oil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how he became so tied to Saudi Arabia. And oil. And it really interesting.
Yeah, and I like that it brought up the kind of three-prong approach that they did, bleed them dry on the defense side with Star Wars, and then at the same time kill their economy with the oil.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were so dependent on oil in Russia.
They still are. That's Russia's number one. Yeah. That's all their money comes from oil and natural gas.
Yeah. Export.
Yeah. Definitely learned.
Gas export.
And then they keep the Afghanistan war going as long as possible so they can draw off all their military strength.
Yeah, killer.
And at the end of the day, they had no money left, and they went completely bankrupt, and that's what destroyed the Soviet Union. It's a brilliant strategic move,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't remember who the interview was, but he was talking about how he had left with the Soviet army for 6 years or something, and Russia had anything and everything they ever wanted, when he went to the store and everything was supplied to him or whatever.
That was like when he was in Afghanistan, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he was in Afghanistan, and when he came back over the bridge back into Russia, it was just like everything was freaking gone.
Nothing.
Shells were it wasn't like just like, a couple of things gone. It was like the entire store was completely freaking
go back
vacant.
To the military and just stay deployed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's just that was crazy.
So after watching this, I watched Charlie Wilson's War again, with Tom Hanks, because that's the Afghanistan side of this documentary, really. And it was it was a new perspective when I was watching. I was like, huh. So really, this was the how they made Afghanistan last as long as they did. And they didn't really want to shoot down. They didn't really want to win in Afghanistan. They just wanted to make it last as long as possible.
Yep. Deplete them.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it was a quick moving one too. I stayed interested, definitely. I like the way they cut it together, and they had the little segues and stuff. It was I liked the way it was done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't go too long in any certain situation or
it was kind of cool. Like it was like they peeled the onion. Each little segment or act, whatever you want to call it, was they'd reveal a little bit more of the plan, and then a little bit more. It was really well done.
Great historical refresher for sure on all the Cold War and our relationships with Saudi Arabia, and which continue to this day, obviously.
Yeah. What about you, Jose? Did you give it a recommend or a required or?
Yeah, I'd give this a high recommend. I enjoyed it. I had a hard time watching it. I fell asleep, but I watched it after a long day at work, and so it wasn't the documentary's fault. That was my fault. So I ended up watching it over 2 days. But yeah, it was a good documentary. Like I said, a high recommend for me.
Yeah. And I, Donald Duck, will also give this same recommendation of a high recommendation on watching this one for sure. All right, we're going to go ahead and go into our next one, Kid Icarus.
All right.
This one's going to be yours, Sean. Go ahead anytime.
All right. Kid Icarus was from 2008. It's 18-year-old Lee lives in a trailer park on the outskirts of Los Angeles. He goes to community college, has no real friends, no girlfriend, and works part-time at the Home Depot. With an obsession for Steven Spielberg and enrolled in a film production class at his local small-town college, he is sure all his misery can change, so he sets out to make his cinematic masterpiece, Enslavance. He hopes this film is his ticket out of a mundane life and into a world of women, popularity, money, and success. And he may actually be on his way if he doesn't self-destruct first. So this was a 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb. Can't find the runtime here, but 1 hour and 18 minutes. So this documentary follows a spoiled brat around that refuses to put in any work, but thinks he's brilliant in his own mind. Lee Harkrider.
Oh, jeez.
So I don't know.
He's got a cool name.
Yeah.
Cool last name.
I don't really know how I came up with this documentary. It stuck in my head when I read the title. For some reason, it was stuck in my head that this was a good documentary. It's not.
The name is cool. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I kept on thinking the same thing. I was like, how did Sean come across this one? It's like, this is something I'd pick.
He's the one that tanks it.
Hey, Donald Duck,
that's
not
right.
Sturdy.
When I was actually looking for, when I found the one about the makeup artist, this one popped up too. So this was like you may also like.
Okay.
They were wrong. I did not also like.
Weird.
But yeah, I don't know. Some interesting things. The one nerdy kid that wants everybody to love him.
The model.
Yes.
Yeah, what's his name? Corey Zachariah.
Yeah, Zachariah. He's actually been
in a lot of
after
things
this.
since then, like 7 different movies.
Yeah.
The guy the director that's also the teacher of the class, he actually likes this guy and uses him in all his films. So,
he actually ended up getting more screen time than anybody else. Corey got more screen time than freaking
I had that
anybody.
exact thought. Like, they just stumbled upon the weird, kind of good-looking guy, and he's stealing the show.
Yep. So I looked up Lee Harkrider. He's actually got quite a filmography on IMDb. Interestingly enough,
Yeah, he does. He looks quite a bit
The
different.
goatee helps.
Yeah, he at some point in the documentary they talk about him growing out his facial hair, and he obviously did, because when you look at his IMDb photo, he's got the scraggly little facial hair going on and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, he's definitely kept with it.
Yeah.
So,
How would you rate this, Jose? What would you say?
this is definitely a regret for me. I don't care about spoiled brat kids that don't get what they want and think they're awesome. I can't bring myself to care about that. So that's all this was.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I'm glad that you regret it. The whole time I was watching it, I was like, the video of them making this stupid movie is better than Enslavance can possibly be. Like, I felt bad, honestly, for anybody in the movie. I felt bad for the fat sound guy. Like, he honestly was dedicated. He wanted to do something. He didn't have a clue of how to do it. But he wanted
Yeah.
to do it, but instead the quirky, stupid, model guy got the sound gig role. Loved yelling
Right.
speed and awkwardly hitting on his castmates.
Oh yeah.
And like there was no storyline to it. Like I'm watching, I'm like, how is this guy making a movie? Like this looks like the worst like garage video I've ever seen.
It
Yeah.
totally was, though. It was a college.
I
Yeah,
read another review on Film Inquiry, and they basically said the only thing that is flawless in this film is the contracts he made everyone sign.
20-page contracts.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, 20 pages for a school film.
And he was so matter
That
of
was
fact
insane.
about it. Like, yeah, this basically says I'm going to sell it and make whatever I want to make, and you get nothing. You're a volunteer.
You're volunteering to get nothing.
Because he had cousin Vinny from freaking
Yeah.
New York telling him that he needed to have these guys sell contracts,
Yeah.
sign contracts and shit. My cousin Vinny said, "You got to do this." It's like, what?
And
Yeah,
he's not even going to give the co-writer a writing credit on the thing.
Yeah, the poor Asian kid that thinks he dreamed it up. Don't take credit for this, dude. This is not the
Right.
one you want to claim you co-wrote.
Yeah, you don't want this on your resume, dude.
Well, in the beginning, it's like I was excited too. I was like, they're drumming up like he's the next Spielberg. So I'm like, oh, cool. This is going to show like this first ever, movie he made, and then it's going to show how he's in stuff we don't know about.
Yeah, and then like he
No.
went on and made The Phantom Menace or something. But no,
Yeah,
he's terrible.
Right.
he created Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, no,
Oh,
you're just
man.
a quirky a-hole that, doesn't know anything and thinks he knows everything.
Yes.
Like
Oh my gosh.
I can't finish editing my movie because I have to go home and watch Smallville.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you,
Smallville. Yes. Right.
As a fan of Smallville,
Well, this was
like,
before the
still-
time. Right. But this was before the time of streaming. You got to give him
Record
credit.
it. Put the
Yeah.
damn VCR on.
Yeah.
Tell
I have
mom.
a
Call
VH
mom.
I still
'cause you
have
can-
some VHSs of like The West Wing or something from 2000.
Call your parents because you still live at home. Tell them to hit record.
Actually, this one actually grew on me. I don't know
Like his
why.
ratty goatee.
Right. Because the first time I watched it, I was working out and I was like, what the hell did Sean pick here? I was like, is he like trying to undermine my selections here or what? But then I watched it, like I was working out, so it was just like, kind of like background. And so then I watched it again. I was like, oh man, there's more to this, because you kind of see this growth in a lot of the people involved with it, because you got what's the older man's character?
Pathetic loser.
The the pathetic 55-year-old loser who went back.
Gets ordered around by Mr. Lee.
Gets
Lena.
kicked off of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, he gets kicked off by Lee because, first they're smoking
Yeah.
dope out in the with Corey.
Yeah.
Dude, how about Corey getting high, man? He was freaking
He's
annoying.
not somebody I want to get drunk
Man,
with.
he took like
No.
Way too
No.
excited.
definitely not somebody you want to get high with, man. He got way too excited, man. They were definitely smoking some weird guns.
I thought he was gonna
dude,
when he
because
started hitting
freaking
on
were
the
just crazy.
castmate. I was like, oh snap! This is gonna turn into like a crazy stalker movie.
Right, that's what I thought.
Because he was gonna show up at her house with like roses and
Yeah, and she's
Right.
like, "Yeah, he called me super drunk last night."
Right. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, dude. Yeah. The actual professional actors, I don't know how they put through or how they got through all this.
yeah. How would you show up to
You
this
know,
and be like,
with
this
dealing
is
with
serious? You guys are not joking?
Yeah,
Right. Because that was nice how the documentarians actually added them into the documentary and like
Mhm.
interviewing them outside of this and like, okay, you're obviously not part of this like college group trying to get through a class. You're an actual actor or actress trying to make a break. Because there was like the one dude who was the drug addict, and then there's that female. I can't remember her name, but she went on to actually do some.
She's the one that played the waitress, I think.
Yeah.
Right, and like I think she was the girlfriend of the drug addict.
Yeah, she's like the star.
Yeah.
She ends up dying at the end, yeah.
Yeah, so she ends up... Her personally, she's actually gone on to do some other more significant roles. But it's amazing that they were able to sit through all this and to deal with all this nonsense for 2 months, So I give them credit for putting up with this craziness.
Yeah, her name is Crystal Rivers. And she's known for High School Musical dance.
She's the one that plays Cheyenne.
Oh, okay.
no, but I was just going through IMDb, and she's in High School Musical too, the dance edition.
There were a couple of other things I learned from this documentary, like never rape your drug dealer.
Right, obviously.
That was funny, just like how clueless they were in the way of that realm of society or life, of how the drug world works, or serial killers or rapists, or what their mind state was. It's just he did absolutely no historical research on, because they were talking about like the drug dealers like doing a drug or doing like an 8-ball and then heroin, like all within the same time. It's just like, no way would a heroin addict be doing anything associated to meth or anything cocaine related within the next couple of hours or something. It's just like they really kind of like missed the ball on that. He didn't do his history for sure.
Yeah, it was like real world outtakes from MTV. Yeah. I can't believe this was actually cut into a movie. I think the kids that decided, hey, let's videotape that dipshit Lee as he makes his movie and make a movie about his sucky movie were the brilliant ones. They're the ones that were like on to something. Right.
Yeah, it was definitely uncomfortable when they went into back to school and they had the student criticism.
Yeah, the sound, I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah,
I like the one kid's just like, so what was the point? I don't understand.
So why'd you waste 2 months of your life doing this?
I was slightly offended that Lee's a Niner fan.
I know. I wondered if you'd catch that.
Or a Spielberg fan.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, take that jersey off. At least put a Kaepernick one on, you punk.
So I wondered if the Ringmaster guys watched this and went,
"Oh yeah,
we should video Cap, because he's about as crazy as this guy." And
right,
but Cap was more focused and dedicated.
Oh,
this
for sure.
guy was just a space cadet that was self-interested. Like, I really don't think he had any concept of what he was doing. He was all into using the lingo, like he knew what the hell it meant. And Cap was dedicated, and he was passionate about that, about the ring guy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to belittle
Don't talk
Cap.
down the ring.
I actually like Cap. But very much. But yeah.
Yes.
I just wondered if the camera people were like, that made this work. Maybe we can make the Ringmaster work by just videoing him.
Yeah.
Right. All right, you guys have anything else on this one?
No, just absolutely do not watch. Yeah.
Yeah, unless if you're interested in becoming a film student, want to know what not to do.
Even then, don't watch this. Don't waste your time.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into our last one, Pathological Optimism, which was my selection. You can find this on Tubi. And the description of this is: in the center of the recent Tribeca Film Festival scandal surrounding his film Vaxxed, from the cover-up to controversy, stands Andrew Wakefield, discredited and stripped of his medical license for his infamous study suggesting a link between the MMR vaccine, bowel disease, and autism. The Pathological Optimism takes us into the inner sanctum of Wakefield and his family from 2011 to 2016 as he fights for his day in court in a little-known defamation case against the British Medical Journal. Wakefield attempts to clear his name as the media-appointed father of the anti-vaccine movement. Director Miranda Bailey weaves a delicate portrait of a man who is the pathological optimist, utilizing a never-before-seen full-access look at the man at the center of one of the biggest medical and media controversies of our times. So this documentary kind of goes over touches bases or boundaries with the short that we covered earlier of autism and the links between MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, and Mr. Wakefield creating a medical journal. And what year was the medical journal produced? It was like in the 90s, right? Yeah, 98. Yeah. Lancet medical journal in 1998. He not directly links MMR to autism, but says that there should be further investigations or studies that should be done to see if there is an actual direct link in between the two things. And so he ends up going through lengthy, very, very lengthy court battles to try to kind of reinstate his medical license and his ability to fight, and also defamation of his name through the state of Texas and a whole bunch of different litigation stuffs. And so you go through this and you don't know what the outcome's going to be. So there's some pivotal points throughout this documentary of, are they going to win the court cases or not? Or is he going to be able to fight forward? Is he going to be able to cover the costs? Because obviously these are very extensive court cases that require a lot of financial support. And you see him, Mr. Wakefield, writing books and going out and doing different types of talks and stuff to kind of raise money to support him and his cause throughout this whole battle. And I'm glad that we put this off to get kind of your side of it, HB, or what is your name tonight?
Panchito.
I
Pistola.
forgot. Panchito. Pistola. Panchito Pistola. Because I kind of was interested in seeing did your wife watch this one with you?
She watched the beginning of it.
Did you ask her about it? Okay.
We've talked about vaccinations quite a bit in her career, in her field
Right.
as a pharmacist, and it was we didn't get into the meat and potatoes of the way that he basically says MMR is the problem. Individually vaccinating is not the problem. How he says basically if you separate them, that's, we still need vaccines. But then he does also say later that he
Right.
does think that vaccinations can cause autism. Like he says that plain as day. She's still a fan of vaccinations. She definitely sees the need for them, because basically it's
Right.
yes, it is a proven fact that vaccinations prevent diseases. It's a roll of the dice. Do you want to roll the dice and see if your kids get autism, or do you want to roll the dice and see if your kids end up paralyzed and
Smallpox or
or
Right.
FDR? Yeah, maybe they'll be president. Who knows? Let's just win the lottery of
Right.
life. So it's definitely a pick your poison type type issue for sure. But she definitely early on had thought this guy was a total quack. But then, she's the more and more, she definitely sees more and more of kind of what he's saying, in that there's so much corporate money pushing vaccinations all the way down to the flu shot that we get every year that, there's just so little proof that it does any good. It's not like these things that are measles is the measles. There's very few strains of it.
Right.
Rubella and, mumps. They're all known, documented problems. It's not the same as the flu vaccine, which every year we try and spitball what this year's, concoction's going to be, and we're never right. So different issues, but similar force of money, money, money.
Yeah, I think we over-vaccinate, but I have no medical background. I just think we over-vaccinate. We don't do the flu shot. I haven't had a flu shot since I was in the Army and had to take one. So,
right.
I don't think it ever did any good for me in the Army. And I don't get the flu any more than anybody else without taking it. So, but the MMR, I think you're a little crazy not taking it. But maybe you split the 3 up. I don't know, but
yeah,
right. See, I was fine with that. Like, I could understand where they're coming from because, like, Sean, you've experienced this with me where it was like one shot and it was just like a whole bunch of different things that were getting injected into you at one time in the Army, and you had no idea.
When I went through, and you had the guns, and it was, we had the pneumatic guns, and you ran the gauntlet. Like, I got 6 shots in 1 minute. It was, who knows what they shot into me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. It's just like a cocktail of all kinds of different things, and I could see where injecting a very young child with a cocktail of different vaccines could become problematic. I could see that argument and go down that path. I would rather, like Wakefield suggests, of kind of splitting it up. Do the measles 1 year, do Rubella the next one, and why do we really need to do all 3 of them at one time?
Yeah.
And there's really no strong argument suggesting why we should do all 3 of them at one time other than money, right?
Yeah.
And in this documentary, you learn that the British government did away with you being able to have that choice to separate it out. And I was like, well, that's kind of jacked up. Why would you do that?
That's socialized medicine.
Why would you not leave?
That's what happens.
It's true.
Totally. Right. Because it's a money thing.
Yeah, because the government's got to save money on it when it's government paid for.
Right.
That's true.
And you don't get any, like, full-on answers in this documentary, of course. Did any of you guys look into watching Vaxxed, his actual documentary?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. I don't know if it's something that I would bring to Talks on Docs, but I would personally like to watch that one and see what else that has to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really interesting. I liked that, he tried to explain, but there was a lot of times when it was just a little above my head, like what was going on with these lawsuits and what was really, the point of the lawsuit. And then he even goes into the studies, that all brought on this. And there was a lot of times where he was trying to explain it. He did a good job, but they get a little convoluted in their explanation of, using the jargon of the tests and the studies and the all that stuff, so that at times I got a little glossed over, like trying to follow his scientific jargon and explanations. But I give him credit. He was very honest about his mistakes. he his biggest
Yes.
bad decision was doing the blood draw birthday party with his 10-year-old.
Yes.
I think he looks at that and goes, if I had done that, I would have a lot more ground to stand on. That was stupid.
Right. Yes, that was definitely a stupid decision.
Even his lawyers or his insurance's lawyers basically told him, they've got you dead to rights on this as a violation of your license. You're never going to win another case.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we go and prove that everything else was unfounded, they've got you dead to rights on this. So he probably never would have been brought in front of the medical review board or whatever they call it in Britain. If that had been his only violation, but because they have that now, he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're always going to be pro-vaccination in our house. I mean, it's too big of a risk not to, in my opinion. But it is disturbing to watch and hear people, and that's one thing we do. That say their kids have been affected, and the topic in our family is there is a discussion. When our youngest was, I think 2. And then when our other child, our other son Cameron, was about the same age, there was a vaccination that they seriously seemed to, kind of like that one mom described him passing out and just being super tired. And when he finally did wake up, he was a different kid. There was one of our vaccinations.
Totally.
It did that to our kid, but our kid did not come back different. So that definitely makes me question, what's in these vaccinations, and is there a precursor genetically that if it triggers based on these vaccinations, that's what dictates it? But I'm not willing to not vaccinate and bring my kid to a life of, potentially getting polio or any of these other deadly diseases. So
that's kind of the same path that I've taken. Is like it's most likely like a combination of genetic paths and the cocktail type of vaccinations. And because I asked the guy that I work with, because of his son having autism and such, of, did he think it was a result of MMR? And he said that it possibly could, but his assumption is that it's more of a genetic thing through his wife's lineage of knowing her family background and such. And which kind of led me down that path of like, well, maybe it's more of like a combination of the two, of the vaccinations and the genetic makeup of certain people and their lineage that ultimately end up in causing or resulting in autism.
Well, and I think that's something that this documentary kind of revealed, not so much shows, but it kind of reveals that that once politics gets involved in something, it kind of closes science from it, so it would be good to explore the possibility that you may have a genetic predisposition to autism, and in combination with taking a cocktail of vaccinations at the same time, maybe that could trigger your genetic predisposition. But we won't research it because it's become so political now, the anti-vax versus the vax and the blah, 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 that now we don't even research it. So,
that's sad, because that's science. He does have the point that science should be able to operate and do their studies and spit out the results, and people can look at them. But science now is, their funding and everything is controlled by the government and people bigger than them. And they need to operate independently from politics, or else the truth isn't going to want to be heard, so it's going to be squashed. There could be partial truths to both sides of this, like you're saying. Jose, it could be true. And I would like to know. But, I feel like a true study that he would do, and a study that maybe these, other side of the issue would do, and put them together, and let's get some super smart people to decipher it. But I don't think they're going to fund it.
Yeah, that's that, and like Wakefield's done, right? He could put together 1,000 studies that were 100% as scientific as possible. Nobody would listen to his research.
He's a talking head at best.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate. Somebody needs to research this. It needs to be there needs to be continued research. And just because the MMR works doesn't mean it's the best way to go. That's just a solution right now. We need to continue to move forward. When we stop moving, that's when we start to have problems.
Mm-hmm. If you care to know how Wakefield's doing today, he is dating former supermodel Elle Macpherson.
Wow.
He separated from his wife right after they finished filming. They finished that house that they were working on after they sold their own house that they were talking about with the daughter. And his wife, Carmel, he told her he needed to find himself, and he found himself in the arms of Elle Macpherson.
Are you serious?
So they're an item. They're not married, but they're a dating item.
Dude, she was.
He stood by him.
Carmel,
he's not
rock
nearly
solid.
That attractive. I mean, he's reaching.
when Carmel made that statement when he was first on the news, they were like, and this doctor who's attractive and educated and articulate. I'm like, whoa.
Right.
He's not attractive.
Right. Dude, she was so supportive of him. Why would he leave her?
She was rock solid. His kids were decent kids, it seemed like.
What an idiot. I hate him just for that.
I changed my mind. I'm pro-vaccine.
Right. This guy's obviously a freaking quack, idiot. No. She was a cool chick, man. I liked her, man. She was just like totally supportive, just like loved him to
and I thought it was cool that she's doing the BBC public radio in Austin.
Yeah.
She found a way to make money and take advantage of her skills as having her accent, and that was funny.
Yeah, that was really cool. What a loser. That pisses me off. I wish you hadn't told me that.
Always gotta dig.
Yeah, you do. All right, that's going to go ahead and conclude this episode. Thank you again for listening. We greatly appreciate it. From Donald Duck.
Jose Carioca, whatever.
And Mr. Pistola.
Mr. Pistola. We greatly appreciate it here at Talks on Docs. Have a great weekend. Talks on Docs is a community podcast, meaning we want to get to know you and to talk to you, the listeners. But to make that happen, we need you to first contact us. Please feel free to email us at talksondocs@gmail.com. Or if you prefer, contact us on Facebook at Talks on Docs or on Twitter at Talks on Docs.
Beautiful day in this neighborhood, beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be